Yeah, the quarterback position is the most important on the field. We know that, and we all get enamored with wide receiver play because it's exciting. For most fans, it's the most exciting position on the field. But this is still, despite how much the game's changed in 20 years, it's still an effort sport. And the team that's going to give the most effort in the fourth quarter is the team that's in better condition, the team that is on the same page with each other, that care about each other, that believe in the head coach, that like the head coach. There is still a large motivational factor and incentive in effort and doing your best when things get tough, whether that's on the scoreboard, things get tough, or that's this is hard and I'm exhausted, things get tough. But we've got to run the ball with 4 minutes left on the clock to preserve this win, or we got to make a defensive stand in the red zone to preserve this game, whatever it is. There's something to be said about that. And like you said, we haven't seen a Brent Venables team play with him as a head coach. But just based on knowing what came before him and knowing him and having a feel for the coach and the individual that he is, I'm banking on him, if not having the most talented team in the country year after year, having a team that's cohesive and solid and sound fundamentally and sound in regards to their care for each other and their unity as a team. As much as can be expected of that in this day and age.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that's and that's the mentality that he has brought and certainly will continue to bring to this program, in years to come. So, and I think I think there's a lot of, when you look at this team overall, I think there's a lot of confidence that this is going to be a good defensive team this year. Maybe not at the beginning of the year, but throughout the totality of the year, that this is going to be a really good defensive team. Now, how good? I mean, I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities to think this could be a top 20, 30 defensive team when the season is over. But I think there's a lot of concern on the offensive side of the ball, like how I think how much, and I'm seeing this very consistently in the comments here, and I'm seeing it just very consistently, just nationally looking at this team, because I think the initial thought outside of this program and outside of people that cover this program is that, oh no, Lincoln Riley left. What's going to happen? What's going to happen to this team? And I think for the most part, it's a fair concern. I think when you have one of the best, but thankfully Oklahoma has been able to replace him with, again, one of the best offensive minds in the country. But I think when you have new players coming in on the offensive side of the ball, like Dylan Gabriel, and then you bring those kids together, just in a new offense, just to see what it's going to be. Because when you look at this, Mark, this team is going to play faster. They're going to play much faster than they've ever played under Lincoln Riley.
And that statement would surprise most people, Jason.
It would, yeah, it would, because Lincoln Riley, he went a little bit slower as his teams, I guess, as his teams progressed. Maybe not necessarily progressed in terms of years, but not in terms of talent, because they played a lot faster with Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray than they played with you know Jalen Hurts and Spencer Rattler and certainly Caleb Williams this year. So, but his Levy's mo is play fast, play fast. They're gonna snap the ball if at all possible, with a ton of time left on that play clock. They get up to the ball, they're gonna snap the ball within 4 or 5 seconds. So I think number one, it puts a lot of onus on your offensive line. Offensive line has to be in outstanding shape. to be able to do that, and they have to be stronger. This is a completely different running scheme than what Oklahoma ran under Riley. As most people know, Riley loved the guard tackle counter play, and it's not really, and there was not a ton of zone schemes in his running scheme, and Levy is very much zone scheme, kind of middle zone scheme. In terms of his running, there's a lot of motion. There's a lot of artificial kind of movement within the offense, just in general. So I think there's a lot of concern as of that. But as we talked about, um, we talked a little bit more about this as the change from Riley to Venables happened, and with Levy, that Oklahoma has gone down in their offensive production each and every year over the last 4 or 5 years, and this last year was the worst offensive team that Oklahoma has had under Riley. Below 40 points per game. We talked a lot about the statistics around that. So, what was the reasoning behind that? Is part of the reasoning Spencer Rattler wasn't quite as effective as a lot of people were thinking. The change from from playing a true freshman who was maybe a little bit limited from a playbook perspective, from an experience perspective, even though he was an outstanding quarterback. We saw some of those limitations later in the year. So, you look at a guy like Dylan Gabriel, which maybe doesn't have the measurables in terms of the talent of a Caleb Williams, or maybe even a Spencer Rattler, but he's a guy that's played a lot of college football, not at the Power 5 level, obviously, but he's played a lot of college football and has put up outstanding statistics in his time at UCF, knows this offense in and out. So, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. I mean, as we start to, in the next few weeks, in a month or so, kind of start getting into these specifics around some of the players and some of the position groups and things like that. I think it'll be interesting to look at, and I think not to get into this too in depth, but I think the offensive line is going to be just such a critical component to this team. Mark, on the offensive side of the ball, just to see how, because they're going to have to be in great shape. Obviously, they're going to have to get bigger and stronger, particularly Andrew Rain at the center position. So it's very intriguing in a lot of different ways this year, as we build up to the season.